He will be a wild donkey of a man. He will be hostile to everyone, and everyone will be hostile to him. He will live away from his brothers. Genesis 16:12.
The animal referred to as a pair is now known as the onager, wild donkey, Equus onager, which can still be found in parts of West and Central Asia. Genesis 16:12 describes Peri Adam as meaning a man who roams and hunts freely in the desert. In Jewish Ismael was born to Hagar for Abraham when he was 86 years old, and Sarah, who acted as his mother, was 76 years old at the time. Ismael was born in Abraham's household, signifying that he was a legitimate son of Abraham. For 13 years, Ismael was Abraham's only son. This undeniable fact would have inevitable consequences. I imagine that Abraham acted as a good father to Ismael, teaching him many things, including practical skills that were important for his son. And surely, he also imparted his faith to Ismael. We know that Abraham was also a warrior, which he demonstrated when he went to battle against King Kedorlaomer and his allies in the effort to rescue his nephew Lot. Thus, Ismael's skill as an archer was likely inherited from the knowledge passed down by his father. Abraham may have been old in years, but he was a very healthy man who could teach Ismael, his beloved son, many different skills. Abraham was a wealthy man with many servants. Surely, there were many other families gathered around Abraham's household, so Ismael likely had several children to play with. And there he was, the crown prince, with everyone around him paying attention to him. Sarah, as the mistress of Abraham's family, was his official mother, even though it was Hagar who gave birth to him. In fact, the local culture at the time placed the son of a slave born to a mistress as the legitimate son of the master. As the master's only son in that community, I imagine that Ismael may not have realized at the time that Hagar was his biological mother. Ismael was a prince in his father's settlement. Who in the world could take away or ruin Ismael's comfort as Abraham's only son? Ideally, when his brother was born, Ismael would become the perfect older brother, protecting him, playing with him, and introducing him to many things. I believe Ismael had great trust in his father and had no reason to worry about his position, even after his brother's birth. Although Abraham faced a difficult decision, as God declared that it would not be Ismael who would be the heir to his covenant, but Isaac. Ismael's position as a son was still secure in Abraham's eyes. He continued to love Ismael because Ismael was also his son. However, the situation had to change, as God required them to be separated. Indeed, there was an antagonistic role played by Sarah in this separation, but all of this was allowed by God. Some of us may view the name Ismael as a cursed name, or at the very least, less impressive than the name Israel. However, both names were given by God himself, and both are symbols of his blessing. The Malach Yahweh, which is a theophany of God himself, gave the name Ismael, and within this name, there is a promise. God uttered this name before Hagar, the mother who bore him.
I will greatly multiply your descendants, the Lord's angel added, so that they will be too numerous to count. Then the Lord's angel said to her, You are now pregnant and are about to give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your painful groans. Genesis 16:10-11.
The name Ismael, Hebrew Yishmael, means God hears, derived from the word shama, to hear, and El, God. Isn't this a beautiful name, containing God's promise? When God hears, it automatically means that He is present. And God's presence is far more important than material blessings. His presence is truly the ultimate blessing. The name Yishmael, meaning God hears, is not just a name. It carries God's promise. And surely, Ismael lived under God's blessing and presence. God never fails to fulfill His promises, and He was there when Ismael needed Him. The Malach Yahweh gave Ismael the title Peri Adam, a wild donkey of a man.
He will be a wild donkey of a man. He will be hostile to everyone, and everyone will be hostile to him. He will live away from his brothers. Genesis 16:12.
The animal referred to as a pair is now known as the onager, wild donkey, Equus onager, which can still be found in parts of West and Central Asia. Genesis 16:12 describes Peri-Adam as meaning a man who roams and hunts freely in the desert. In Jewish culture, this was a compliment to his resilience. Compare it to the title given to one of the ancestors of the Israelite tribes, Issachar. The second part of Genesis 16:12, which says Ismael will live in hostility toward all his brothers, does not refer to hostility toward Israel. Israel was not Ismael's brother. Ismael and Isaac were indeed brothers because they shared the same father. And there was a time when Ismael mocked Isaac, as recorded in Genesis 21:8-10, which led to Ismael and Hagar being expelled from Abraham's household. The term brothers here refers to the descendants of Ismael, just as the phrase brothers of Israel refers to the tribes of the children of Israel. For example, Moses said, "From among your brothers," Deuteronomy 18:15, before the people of Israel, meaning from among the brothers of the children of Israel, which consisted of 12 tribes. If an Israelite were to say brothers of Levi, it would mean brothers from the tribe of Levi. The descendants of Isaac are not only the Jewish people, but also include the nation of Edom. Isaac had 2 sons, Jacob, Israel, and Esau. The relationship between Israel and Ismael is that of nephew and uncle, not brothers. The position of Ismael in the Bible is important to highlight because there is some misunderstanding among the Semitic religions regarding the title, wild donkey. However, Ismael was the son of Abraham and also received the blessing of Abraham, including for his descendants. The Bible clearly states that although Abraham had many other sons, only Ismael and Isaac were given the distinction of being called sons. Although many interpret that Isaac and Ismael later became rivals, that belief is incorrect, as both brothers together buried their father. In Jewish culture, this is a sign of close familial ties.
Abraham lived a total of 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man who had lived a full life. He joined his ancestors. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar, the Hittite. This was the field Abraham had purchased from the sons of Hethot. There Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. Genesis 25:7-10.
The descendants of Ismael and Isaac did not become enemies. As proof, a descendant of Ismael became the commander of David's army.
Meanwhile, David had gone to Mahanaim, while Absalom and all the men of Israel had crossed the Jordan River. Absalom had made Amasa general in command of the army in place of Joab. Now Amasa was the son of an Israelite, man named Jether, who had married Abigail, the daughter of Nahash and sister of Zeruiah, Joab's mother, to Samuel 17:24-25.
Jewish history shows that the descendants of Ismael were generally accepted as part of the broader community, although there were those with prejudice.